Hi everyone, welcome back to Jungle Citizens. Today we are going to be planting trees. All of those trees we bought in that nursery and that we offloaded and we went through last week, now we're going to be planting them. So stay tuned because we're going to give you a whole ton of really juicy information, how big the holes need to be, why they're getting planted, where they're getting planted, and again more information about facts. You know what I'm like by now, I guess. I talk a lot and I tell you all about the plants. So we're going to be doing that today. So guys, we're here in the third of the 4 gardens that we keep talking about, even though we've only shown you 2 of them. It's right next door to where we're living. And it's an area that we're turning into a mixed garden and conservation landscape with lots of natives and also lots of ornamentals that aren't native. Here we have the Monoon fragrance. You can see we've got lots of the anthuriums that we've chucked in the back. Obviously everything's only just been planted, so it's taking a little while to get into its groove, but we do have very nice new leaves coming. You can see here on this crystallinum, that's very nice new leaf. There's a very nice new leaf coming there as well. So the things are starting to get a little bit of a groove on. And the first plant that we're going to be planting now is one of the bare root clerodendrons. We're going to have to get all of these in the ground. We've got 5 of them here, and they're all going to have to get planted immediately if they have any chance of surviving. So we're going to plant this one here. We're planting this in an environment where it gets a good amount of light, but it gets very little direct sunlight, and it shouldn't really get direct sunlight all year. They don't mind it being bright, but they don't really want to get hit by direct light. So we're going to put this one here because as an evergreen tree, it will help provide even more shade to our anthuriums. And our anthuriums like dark shade. The darker the environment for an anthurium, the bigger and the darker the leaf, which is what we like to see. So we're going to plant this straight away. Just have a little look here. You can see our soil that is completely covered with mulch. It's one of the areas where we actually do have enough mulch. And we've now got this new sprinkler system in, which you might have already seen in a couple of our videos. Now look at what happens, right? This is the mulch. And if we go and open up a space, wow, take a look at that. Look at this. See all of that white stuff? All of this is mycorrhizal fungi. And this is what is breaking down all of this organic material and making our soil incredibly fertile and rich. And look here, here's a little mushroom. And there's lots, look. And you see this mushroom is growing on this heliconia stem. So what I'm showing you, that white stuff, that what I'm calling mycorrhizal fungi, that is basically inside of this heliconia stem and is starting to break it down. So this mushroom is feeding on this stem, and in the process, it's breaking up all of the cells and breaking them down into nutrients, which then goes straight into the soil and becomes available for the plants. It's very important that we have bioavailability. We can put all the nutrients in the world in that we want with chemicals, with fertilizers. At the end of the day, if there is no active fungus, there is no way for the nutrients to get into the plant. Anyway, I'm going to get it planted because that's the most important thing. It can be even 5 or 6 meters in height. So what it will do is it will create a decent amount of shade in this environment without becoming a massive tree, which is what our anthuriums appreciate. And also, it does grow a fairly clean, uniform stem, which means that the leaves and stuff, the leaves end up going a little bit higher, which is great for the anthuriums because they then have space below. So what we do when we plant is we try and loosen up as much of the soil as we can. We move this kind of topmost layer where you have all that mycorrhizal fungi, and just look at it. I mean, it's this section is incredibly healthy, it has to be said. It's probably one of our healthiest soil microbiomes. And then what we do is we loosen up all the soil. And to be honest, sometimes we can be very lazy because we have the support now of the sprinkler system, and especially if it's one of those really massive trees. Ideally, you'd want to be making a hole that's 2 or 3 times the size and roughly square, actually, rather than round, because it allows the roots to penetrate easier. Considering the environment we're in and considering the sprinkler system we have, sometimes we end up being a bit lazy and just chucking them in. But if we have the time, then this kind of a significant loosening helps a lot, because it means that the roots of the plant are not encountering much resistance, which allows them to basically explore the soil around them very quickly and therefore start becoming established a lot faster. So we've put it in, we've moved the soil around. Underneath this plant, the soil is already loosened, and around it is. We then gently pat it down. We're not trying to make it super compact. We're just trying to give it a little bit of rigidity. And then once we've returned the soil layer, we're now going to return this kind of topsoil, subsoil mulch, whatever you want to call it, layer in. Break it down just a little bit so that everything is nice and tucked in. And then most importantly, our mulch comes back because, as hopefully has become super clear from our videos, that mulch is very effectively locking in all of our moisture. So this is a work in progress garden, guys. You can probably see we're quite busy doing all sorts of different things, but we're going to be showing you a lot more of this garden and how and what we're doing in it, as well as one more garden which we're going to start planting up soon. But what you can see here is not a finished floor, and this shouldn't have really any of this organic material on it, because ideally we'd be sweeping it every few days, collecting all of this, because this is gold, and then putting it in there so you have a nice clean area to sit. But we haven't got that far yet. So these are the cacaos. Some of them we urgently have to get in the ground because, as you can see, they're completely bare root, which is not something that plants like at all. And what we're going to do is plant them all in this side. So this is like our mini rainforest biome. It already has a lot of bananas. It has a good amount of shade. It has a decent microclimate. The water doesn't flow off from here, which means that you can build a good amount of soil here. So we're going to plant them all here in this area. So there's going to be like a little mini cacao zone. So just a quick thing about planting. Come and see the hole that I've cut. You can see it's square. Now, this is one of these very simple tricks that seems to make a good difference to when you're planting plants, because when the hole is round, the roots end up just going around in circles. When the hole is square, the roots end up traveling along the edge. And then they hit the corner, and where they hit the corner, they're more inclined to go in rather than keep going around. So it's one of those things that I can't tell you categorically if it helps or not, to be honest, but something that I try and do when I can. And obviously it's made a lot easier with the tool we use, which is this thing, which locally is called a fowler. And just actually, as we make this point, you see down in the bottom, you have this kind of orange clay. That's the original soil. But we've had some organic inputs put in this side over the last couple of years, and you can see how black the topsoil is. So that's basically all because this area is contained and the water is not able to flow off, which means that all of that really nutrient-rich topsoil stays and builds. And that is fantastic for the plants, which is why this is the area that we want to turn into our little mini rainforest and spice biome. So what we do is we try and break up the soil as much as possible, and then we give it a gentle compression, not crazy, just gentle, and then backfill the top. So this then will be complete by putting a whole bunch of mulch around it to make sure that we don't have any weeds or things growing up in the short term, and to hold in the moisture and the humidity. But as you can see right behind me, this sprinkler is here, which means this guy is going to get lots of water. So we're now going to repeat this process as quick as possible for these two, because they're also bare root, as you can see. And yeah, then crack on with the rest of them as well. Guys, check this out. We were just going to plant this cacao and noticed in the background we have all of these mushrooms growing on these branches. These are, if I'm not wrong, I'm going to have to just check them, pleurotus. And pleurotus are oyster mushrooms. Yes, look at that. That is an oyster mushroom, and that means it's edible, which means we're going to harvest these guys and have them in our dinner. Because you were saying we wanted to make pasta tonight, no?
Yes.
So tonight we're going to have a pasta with mushrooms. Now, guys, it's really important that we do things sustainably. So just take a look here. You see these guys? These guys are a little bit young. And you can see these guys have already got a lot larger. So we're going to leave these here because that gives them time to mature and sporulate. And that means that the next generation of oyster mushrooms is going to come back. So as with any kind of harvesting from the wild, we have to try and make sure that we understand our impact and we do things sustainably. So let's get some of these bigger guys off. Wow, see? These are the luxuries of the forest. Now, if I take this off like that, you can see here the mycorrhizae are still there. So if I now put this back inside here, as long as the moisture remains, they will continue to grow. So this is all stuff that's now starting to happen because we have this sprinkler system in, which creates a lot more moisture and a microclimate that basically speeds up the whole process. Beautiful. And this, everyone, is the joy of living in the wild. There are so many incredible luxuries that we get from nature. And nowadays, because we just buy them in shops, we kind of take it for granted. But there's nothing more special than finding forest food like that. And if you see, we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 here, which are going to carry on maturing and will create the next generation. And this one, and you can see here this one and these ones that have all already gone through the process. So we are getting our meal and the forest continues to have its mushrooms. And while we're at it, we'll get rid of this bloody chromalena. All right, let's get these quickly in the fridge. So we've done all the cacaos and the clerodendrons, and now we are going to plant the next ones. Let's see what they are. So we're now going to plant this cinnamon, because again it's bare rooted. We're going to put it in here. Now you might notice there's a lot going on here. There's actually a big tree just there. Actually, we don't really like to plant trees very wide apart. We find they grow better together. Now in the long run, we can take decisions about which tree we want to grow up. We can trim them and so on. And this obviously being a cinnamon means if we're going to harvest it in 10 years, we actually have to cut the tree and then allow it to regrow. So we like to plant things close together and then allow them to kind of compete naturally. And this is what we're going to do with this one. So, I mean, I guess I can't keep showing you guys all the time about this soil situation. You're going to get bored of it after a while, but it makes me so happy to see. Look, this is the bottom kind of clay layer. Oh, there's even an earthworm. Look at that. Earthworm in the dry season. How can I do this without hurting you? Come out, buddy. Yeah. Look at that. Did I hurt you? Well, I might have hurt him a little bit, but I think he's going to be all right. Unfortunately, they can be collateral damage sometimes, but that's a very, very good sign of soil health. Yeah, the tree disappeared. So the other nice thing about this is it's come with this moss, which, to be honest, along with the fern, I almost find more important than the tree. But hopefully the moss will survive here, as the fern will, because it's decently shady and also right next to one of our sprinklers. So let's see, right, done. Next one. So it's the star apple now that we're planting. You can see that it's quite shocked. A lot of the roots had rooted in the nursery. Luckily, it's a quite robust plant, and I think it doesn't mind a good amount of sun. So we hope it's going to survive the shock of the move, but this should be a very good spot for it. Right, now we've got the Saraka Soka. We have to find a suitable spot for this, and I think it should be on this riverbank. I'm thinking it should still be sort of halfway so it can do both, because it will start seeding. But it's such a beautiful tree to have on the edge of the path for people to see, you know. The Ashoka is a small tree again. It's only... Wow, look at this, guys. I know we're going to be so repetitive, but it's so amazing. Look, Look how good the soil is, and look at this mycorrhizal fungi. Look, there's another worm. There's another worm in the dry season. This is awesome. Like, this is in the space of maybe 2 weeks. I don't know how long these sprinkler systems have been here, but like the difference is absolutely massive. And it's not even a month. The amount of bioactivity that we're seeing is just insane. And the soil is so soft. So very often people say like plants or trees should be planted a minimum distance apart. With trees often it's 3 meters or 4.5 meters or whatever. If you go into a forest, you'll very rarely find, actually you'll never find trees that are evenly spaced apart. This is very much a kind of plantation mindset in order to either maximize the produce if it's a mango or something like that, or it's to maximize the wood growth. But in a forest, that's not how it works. And very often it doesn't maximize the growth of the plants. So actually, we like to plant things together because we like to emulate the natural systems. So like here, you'll see I'm actually planting this extremely close to this Alstonia scolaris. Now, firstly, this Alstonia was planted. It's not come from seed here. And we have got quite a lot of seedlings coming up from the local Alstonia. So this is a 35-40 meter evergreen tree. This is a 12 to 14 meter evergreen tree. This tree is used to living under the shade of other trees, actually. It's used to being the sort of the bottom layer of the canopy. So even if both of them survive, they will be able to live together. And in fact, them being together in the long run, in my view, is very likely to create a symbiotic relationship that allows them both to thrive better than they otherwise would. Returning the soil, liberal covering. Oh, hello. There's an elephant ear coming. That would be nice. Another benefit of having all of this water. Lovely. So this one is the, what is it called? Cherry drop garcinia or lemon drop garcinia. So this is actually a small tree. I don't think it reaches that big at all. It's just maybe 5-6 meters, maximum 8 meters. So it's more of a kind of understory evergreen, and I was just doing a little bit of research on it, and they say they don't mind quite a lot of sun, which is actually quite unusual for garcinias. So I'm not really taking them at their word because I'm planting them in a semi-shady place. Well, let's see how that guy gets on. It's certainly a lovely looking plant. So we're going to plant a couple of the elephant ear ficus or Ficus auriculata in these middle areas. You might notice it's got a bit dark. The day is gone. We've had all sorts of other things to do, so we haven't been planting all day, and we still have more plants to plant. But let's get these in now. The reason why we're planting these in the middle here is because they give amazing shade. So these, if we put one here and one there in the middle, very, very quickly they're going to give us some amazing shade. You can see the soil here is absolutely terrible. Only a few days ago, we added this mulch. So this is the reality when you haven't done any soil work. Oh, I feel bad putting a plant in that. Can we put a plant in that? So the worse the soil, the more work you have to put in. The hole needs to be bigger. And ideally, you have to find some soil to add so that you can give it a good start. We're going to have to get more of our good soil and better mulch. I'm not allowed to swear on here, but I'm inches away from swearing. So we're just watering the hole a little bit because the ground is super hard and dense. Just to let that water really percolate into the ground, break it up a little bit more, and then that gives the roots a little bit of space to go. We're also going to hijack a little bit of the good soil from over here to fill the hole, and then we're going to get some of that amazing mycorrhizal fungi and put it in with this stuff so that we can really very rapidly start breaking this down and turning it into soil. So you can see this is actually filling. So it shows, like if I stop filling it, you'll see how long it stays there. It shows just how dense the soil is, you know, very dense and very impermeable, which isn't really what you want. Luckily, these trees are super duper robust normally, no? So as long as the roots have a chance to start getting out, they should be all right here. So we've got a bunch of this good soil. You'll see it's been quite a few minutes now, and this isn't going anywhere. The water, which just shows you how thick this really is. It's a bit mad. So that's a bit worrying, because if water sits like this in roots that aren't that used to being underwater, you can get root rot quite quickly. This is a tree that does live alongside riverbanks, so it should be able to deal with it, but nonetheless, don't really want to plant it with this much water. And guys, we're going to leave it to soak overnight. We're going to carry on planting in the morning because it's getting too dark, and yeah, that's not going anywhere. New day, old shirt, same challenge, trees to plant. And we're going to get straight into it. We've got a couple of the big leaf figs that we've already placed. Yeah, we can start with that. I know what happened because I checked it last night and it had gone inside. So I put all the soil in it. New day, old hole. Sorry.
Joke.
New day, old hole, bad joke. Fair enough. So...
So what did you do?
What did I do? So I've added in some soil, which I hijacked from the bed that we've already made behind, so that it's got some really nice growing medium to grow in. And what I'm now going to do is chuck this little dude in. Sometimes we like to try and reuse these plastic planting things if they're new, because they do start to fall apart quite quickly. Now, these plants have been grown from cuttings by the nursery, so you do have to be a little bit careful. You don't want to damage their roots, and they're going to be a little bit fragile at this stage. So that's great. We can use this again. And then this guy we chuck in here. Now, before we do that, because it's a little bit low, we'll get a bit of this soil in. It's very sandy and loamy. It's very unusual soil, I have to be honest. It's only on this part of the property. The area that we're in actually was said to have been an old port town. It was an old port town. And the ocean used to come right up to here. So maybe that's why we have this area of extremely sandy soil. So that's one plant in. So last thing now, we just want to get this covered up a little bit with mulch. We're not going to do this one right now because we have to go around and do all of them, actually. But this, to get it finished now, it needs a proper nice bed of mulch around it and then a good watering. Okay, next let's get this one, which is having a better root system, in here. So we're going to put the next fig tree in here. You'll see now that the sprinklers are in, it's created a new definition where it gets wet. So we're actually going to create a second line here and a new bed just to increase the amount of planting that we have. And because of that, we want to put this tree right on the edge because we have a huge problem with sun here. And here is where we're going to be having our fireplace and a little sitting area. So in order to get the maximum amount of shade in this area, just within a very short amount of time, 1 or 2 years, we're going to be planting this right on the edge. Now, because this area is shady here, but open and sunny here, the tree is naturally going to grow in this direction, which then means we're going to create this canopy for ourselves. So that's why it's going here. Little landscaping tip. Try and understand what will happen in the future based on what the plant wants and needs, and then use it to your benefit. So we're now going to plant this Ashoka. It's going to need a far bigger hole, and again it's right on the edge of where you can see the sprinkler is getting the water to. And again, it's being planted here on this edge because this side is bright and this side is shady, which means the tree naturally will go in this direction. And because the flowers of this tree smell incredible and the foliage is amazing year round, it becomes an incredible feature tree for the garden. And because right where that spot is where you're standing is going to be our sitting area and bonfire area, it's then very nice to have these really powerful landscaping plants in this area as well. So the hole's going to have to be a lot bigger. Bear with me, guys. Guys, when you're planting things like trees, the stem needs to be able to breathe. So one thing that we see very regularly is that when people plant trees, they pile the soil up like this. When you do that, you don't allow that bottom part of the tree to breathe. And you also end up trapping in moisture, which basically means that very often these young trees end up rotting here. So you can certainly add mulch if it's very, very fluffy, but even then you don't want to have lots of mulch piled against it. Better to have a little bit of space around the edge of the tree and then to put all the mulch around it, have a little bit there, but don't pile up the soil like this because it ends up doing no good and some harm quite often. So we're going to plant this. This is the native ficus combo, Ficus racemosa, and I think this is Ficus callosa. But it's difficult to tell when it's young. We'll see. We're going to plant that on the riverbank because right now all we have is this spiky, horrible bamboo, and bamboo has a very shallow rooting system, which means in the monsoon, when you have lots of water coming down here, they don't really hold the bank. So in order to restore the riverbank, restore its functioning and restore the strength of the riverbank and stop the constant erosion of the soil, we need to get these river specialists. So these are both big evergreen forest trees. Actually, no, the Ficus racemosa is deciduous, but they're both adapted to live alongside streams and riverbanks. Oh, I've just seen something very annoying. Look, there's a plastic pot in there. And we have to take it out because that tree won't be able to grow otherwise. So look, because this is a nursery pot, the original plant that was in here was clearly like a tissue culture plant or something, which means it has this horrible plastic pot inside. So if we leave this pot in here, this tree will grow until it reaches this diameter, and then it will start getting constricted by the plastic. Now, maybe the plastic will start degrading by then and it will be okay, but we're going to have to take it out anyway. We don't like to put plastic into the system if we can help it. And it might end up killing the tree in the long run. Ooh, that's a hole. Look at that. See that?
That's where the tree will go. That's scary because
super scary. And I'm still going, huh?
Oh my god.
Look at this, guys.
That's how the whole thing goes with the...
And this is exactly what I was talking about. So when you have things like bamboo, they have these very constricted and localized, dense root balls. They don't send roots out. They don't create any good structure. So what ends up happening is the water in the monsoon comes under here and the bank initially stays. You don't know that there's a problem because the water has just gone underneath and you can see how sandy this soil is. So it's actually very easy for this to get washed away. If we don't start putting trees here quickly, you can probably say that all of this will end up disappearing in the next few years. There'll just be a banyan tree island. So yeah, okay, this is where the tree will go. I'm going to have to get some snips to cut the thing out, but that's crazy. Oh, okay. Ta-da. So since they've separated, maybe we plant them in 2 different places. But the advantage is that this tree is going to find it so easy to get its roots in the ground, which means that it will start accessing the groundwater. And of course, because the sprinkler's here, it has basically permanent water access. So, right, where should we go? We're going to have to start cutting this bamboo because it's going to want to grow that way. But okay, we'll let it in the short term. So let's get some of these nutmegs planted. We're going to put nutmegs in here in what we're now calling our new mini rainforest biome. They like quite a good amount of shade when they're young, and they like lots of water and moisture, which they're going to get in ample quantity here. The cacaos are looking happy. Look in here now, we've got a new growth coming from this monstera node. This guy's been absolutely decimated by someone. I think we're going to have to get that out. It's too dark. But look, there's a new leaf coming on the Pappy hybrid. And full with worms. Come and see. But yeah, it is amazing that we have them already coming so quickly. So you can see this one's growing a little bit bent. Many people would be inclined to put a stick and try and straighten it out. I'd actually rather plant it at a little bit of an angle to allow it to sit naturally straight, because trees don't really like being straightened out very much. They'd rather do it on their own terms. So the tree's not going to care about this. It's just going to kind of slowly right itself, but it's not going to force anything on it. So yeah, another little planting tip. So this is Ficus nervosa, huge 35 odd meter evergreen tree. It's very commonly found along the edge of riverbanks. Excuse me, I have an itchy nose. It's found along the edge of riverbanks in proper forest areas. So they're not really found around here, because now the forest areas of this region have really been significantly degraded. So it's good to be getting this species back here where it belongs, and right next to the river, because as you can see, all the trees at some point have been cleared from this side, and now there's a kind of laterite wall, but there's nothing holding that laterite wall in place. And in the monsoon, you have a very, very strong flow of rain. So nature's solution to this is these kind of very strong-rooted trees that hold the bank in, whilst at the same time providing an evergreen canopy for the water, which means then that the water quality is higher. So this is a really crucial riparian, we call it, riparian species, riverside species, and a fantastic tree. Of course, being a fig, it provides lots of fruits to all of the animals of the forest as well. So this is a really good one for having an impact in many, many different ways. But if you live by a river in a forest area, try and get it restored. Try and get your trees back. Try and get your canopy back if it's not there already. Try and get the water shaded. And never cut trees along the edge of the river. Leave them be. Get rid of creepers and vines, yes, fine. But the trees are too valuable. Never cut a tree along a river, even if it's a little tree. Don't cut it. It's important. So I'm planting this rambutan here because it's a tree that can deal with strong light. But at the same time, when it's young like this, to have a little bit of protection and shade is very helpful. So we're going to put this one in here because it gets, as you can see, some direct protection from this branch, although it's probably going to get cut by someone at some point. And it also has some kind of shade above it. So that's why this guy is going here. So guys, we're here a couple of days later, and check out again these beautiful pleurotus oyster mushrooms. So because we didn't harvest all of them, and because we left the piece of wood, you can see that they've all come back. So there's more young ones coming. All around here, they're young ones. And then there's a few more mature ones as well. So we're again going to take a few of these for breakfast today. Or brunch it'll be, not breakfast. And again, this is the value of gardening with nature. Instead of using cement or bricks to use natural materials, really allows for all of nature to thrive. And that's as good for us as it is for all of the wildlife and biodiversity. And these mushrooms are a great example of that. And the cacao is happy. So we just had a snake rescue call just down the road. Actually really like 300-400 meters down the road. And it's a rat snake, which is a completely harmless snake that's very important to have around villages because they eat rats and other things, which helps to control the rodent population, which in turn also means that you have a better balance of snakes because they inhabit the same niche as the venomous snakes do. So if you have these guys in your garden, any kind of non-venomous snakes, leave them be, don't kill them. Actually, if you have any snakes in your garden, even venomous snakes, don't kill them because it's more dangerous to get close to them than it is just to leave them alone. Once you've seen a snake, it's not dangerous because no snake's ever going to attack you. They have no interest in that, at least not in this part of the world. There's very few in the world that use aggression as a form of immediate defense. Snakes will always try and escape wherever possible. It's only their final option to act aggressively or to try and bite. You can see the snake is not biting, she just wants to go on her way. So the best thing you can do if you see any snake is just observe it. Don't try and kill it, don't run away, don't panic. Just sit and watch it because you'll soon see that they are absolutely incredible creatures. They're stunning and they're very gentle. They don't want to cause any problems. They just want to go on and live their life. So now we're going to put her down and watch where she goes. So one of the small trees that we bought was Ficus racemosa. This is a Ficus racemosa. It's actually wild. It grew here in situ. So the seed came and it grew. Now actually, this is a really, really important point. We have this urge to plant trees, to plant forests, to do these big designs for places. Very often we'll use JCBs, we'll flatten things, we'll level things. What we end up doing is damaging the ecology of the place, and there are many valuable things that exist there on the land. So let's take a little walk around here. So this is a kokum, Garcinia indica, planted, endemic, important species, important to plant. This is a Ficus racemosa, or cluster fig, not planted, but keeping it there is actually helping this guy to grow. Look, they're both super happy. This is a teak tree, also planted. But if you look here, we've got another cluster fig, Ficus racemosa. You can see how well it's growing. It's a deciduous tree. It's recently dropped its leaves and it's been cut back because it's along the road, but lots and lots of new leaves coming. Nothing will grow better here than a plant that's supposed to be here. And a plant that's grown here from seed is definitely supposed to be here. Further along, we've got another cluster fig here. Then here we have another variety of fig. This is Ficus virens. This is a massive, massive banyan tree type tree. Amazing tree, gives incredible foliage, gives these amazing buttress roots, aerial roots. And there's another one here. Look how beautiful that is. This is a plant that has incredible ornamental attributes, and yet it's just seen as a wild plant. It's growing incredibly well and it's making a big impact visually. So you can see, again, there's another kokum behind it. You have one of these peacock flowers. Yes, okay, this is definitely very beautiful, but this is too. So if you're designing a garden, if you're doing a permaculture plan, try and integrate a lot of the trees that you already have. And if you here's the big one, try and learn how the sapling trees look so you can identify them and then nourish them. Even if in the long run you don't want to have these trees, right now they're providing you shade, they're providing soil cover, they're allowing for a huge amount of other things to thrive, whether it's the soil microbiology, whether it's the species of caterpillars that are eating these figs, these leaves. One more important thing. Oh, let's go over here. All of these are trees you can buy in the nursery. You'll pay 250 rupees in a private nursery, or you can buy them in forest nurseries. This is Alstonia scolaris, the devil tree. These haven't been planted. There's an adult tree further down. They've just come up. Here's another one, look. Now look at the impact that's making. Now that is enough shade for us to be able to grow some really amazing things underneath it. whether they're forest trees or whether they're fruits that need a little bit more shade, or you could grow things like beans and peas up it. So just come and have a look in here. This is a Ficus racemosa cluster fig. So it's very commonly found around water bodies, streams. It has incredibly strong roots that are able to hold onto the edges of these banks and prevent soil erosion. As you can see, are currently fruiting, and it is an absolute favorite food for a host of animals. So whether you're talking about hornbills or barbets or bulbuls, just now there was a coel here eating, or even if you're in more of the forested areas, this is a plant, or this is a fig that will get eaten by bears. I presume the jackals will even be eating it. So it's a brilliant, brilliant tree. Now, as I've said on some of these videos before, the best thing about figs is that they don't really have any rules. They are prepared to flower at any time of year, and every tree will have its own different rhythm, which means that even at times of immense scarcity, when there aren't any fruits coming from other trees, this will be giving. Look, there's one here. Let's see if we can, maybe nothing will happen. We'll see some of the fig wasps inside. Oh, look at that. Wow. So these are the fig wasps. So basically you have to imagine that this fig is kind of like an inverted flower. So what happens is the females that lay their eggs in there, the males and the females stay inside. I think the males even end up dying inside of the fig, and the females are the ones that afterwards then leave and then lay their eggs into another fig, and that is what creates the process of pollination. These female fig wasps coming out and then finding another fig to insert their larvae. So without a fig wasp, there is no fig. And without a fig, there is no fig wasp. But even the fish eat it. Well, basically everything eats it. Everything that's not a carnivore will eat these figs. Even humans, although it must be said they're not the tastiest figs in the world. And as you probably saw just now, you'd get a proper kick of protein with it, with all of those flies. So guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much for coming on board. It's been amazing as always. Hope you enjoyed the content. Please leave any comments or questions in the text down below. It would be amazing to get your feedback. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll be seeing you very soon.